everyone, my name is Leah Harlann, and this is my 500 subscriber special video where I'm going to finally, after a long time, do the BookTube Newbie tag. I know, it's so late. Okay, water, caffeine, water. I feel like some of you could have guessed. All right. Apologies for the model being, if it's a little wonky today. And if you've seen some, well, depending on when this video comes out as opposed to some other ones, I've been playing around with some different tracking software and different softwares in general lately. And, so we're playtesting a few. Okay, so BookTube Newbie tag. This was originally by a user who went by the name MaddenGirl16. As far as I can tell, she is no longer active. You've probably seen several other booktubers use or make videos with this tag. For many booktubers, this is the first video they put on their channel. But I am a silly little goose and did not do that. And I think I had, at several points over the last couple years, been like, oh yeah, I should do the BookTube Newbie tag. And then I just forgot and never did it. So here we go. Now that I actually have at least one person watching some of these videos, I'll make a BookTube Newbie tag and I'll pin it on my channel so that people who come to check out my channel will know right off the bat if I'm going to be the kind of person you want to watch. But just as a slight intro before I answer the questions, this can also serve as a welcome to me and my channel type of introduction. My name is Leah Harlann, as I said previously, and I am a bibliomancer, which is a type of mage who has very scholarly interests and basically learns and stores spells in books, and book magic is kind of a really good generalized way to put it. I work at the Inter-Dimensional Library of Magica, and I am trying to join their library corps, which is a group of very special, highly trained bibliomancers who travel throughout dimensions and various worlds to gather stories and information and knowledge, and then because they are highly trained because they face sometimes an uncertain amount of peril in the places they go. So there's kind of a lot more that I've written in terms of my lore, you could call it, but we can save that for other videos or in the future. Now, getting into the actual content of the BookTube Newbie tag, I will list all of the questions in the description of the video. Most of them are pretty true to the original, but I did slightly tweak a couple of them, and I think I added one new one at the end, or at least one that I've seen other people add as well, and so it's kind of like me also doing an extra bonus question. So first, why did you start this channel? I wanted to join the book community while I was in library school. I have since, as of last month, actually graduated with my master's in library and information studies. Yippee! But if you look back at a lot of my earlier videos, I was trying to do a sort of vlog series as well, documenting my time in library school. Unfortunately, I was trying to get through school at a breakneck pace and taking as many classes as I could handle each semester, and I did graduate in 4 semesters. So my ability to vlog dropped off drastically as I got into certain courses that demanded a lot of my time, and I just didn't have the energy to vlog and kind of keep up with what I was doing in a lot of those classes. But you will notice in some of my book review or monthly wrap-up type videos over time that there were plenty of times that I was reading books for those classes, and it was really fun to be able to come to this channel and share them with all of you whenever I read a book that was particularly impactful. Basically, even though I'm done with library school, I still want to be a booktuber who is also a librarian, and Once I start working in a library, I hope to keep sharing book content with all of you, but also library-centric content as well. Question number 2. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? Well, in case some of you haven't already picked up on the most obvious unique trait I bring into BookTube, I want to be a Booktuber and a Vtuber, which is what you are looking at right now. A virtual YouTuber. I refuse to choose one over the other, as it turns out. I love VTubers and I love BookTube. You may see me forcibly overlap the two sometimes. And while I am calling it more of a BookTube channel in terms of which community I consider myself a bigger part of, I really hope that those of you who also like VTubers and some types of reading and content that are typically found more commonly in the anime spaces, not just manga, but things like webtoons and manhwa. I'm not sure how you say it. Anyway, other types of reading content or story content that are typically in other spaces that aren't typically covered in BookTube, I hope to also get around to covering or at least touching on all of those as well, because I, like many of you, am a complex person with many varied interests that don't all neatly fit into one community on the internet. I also want to see more discussion of webtoons and manhwas, because we're seeing a lot more of them getting published in English and in physical formats. And I have seen several other booktubers who are really getting into some of these works, but it's kind of interesting because for them, it's like a branching out of their original kind of main content or main type of reading. But for me, that has been the core of my reading for many, many years. And I've only just been getting back into reading traditional published books that are, like from the big 5 publishers in the Western world. So it's, I'm coming at it from a sort of reverse approach. Question number 3. What are you most excited about for this channel? So one of the things I'm most excited about that I still haven't really put in much effort to do yet is connecting with other readers and booktubers. I follow several other booktubers and I'm big fans of many of them. I'll link some of my favorites below in the description. I would love to be able to start talking to booktubers, especially ones that share with my love of, the kinds of stories that are coming out of Asia, things like the manhwas, manga, webtoons, things like that. And then also Danmei. Oh my gosh, if you like Danmei, if you like Heaven Official's Blessing, if you like the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, if you like Remnants of Filth, if you like Tuha, if you like Urha, whichever way you say it, and many more. I mean, those are kind of just like the start, right? But if you like those, please come talk to me. I really need more people to gush about these with. I also want to encourage more reading because, I, like many people, used to read a lot and then kind of fell out of it, maybe got a little burned out or a little too caught up in life, and now I'm kind of rediscovering my love for reading. And so I want to welcome and talk to people who have also had similar experiences. I want to read more, of course, but also to track my reading better. I'm starting my own reading log. I'm using Goodreads and Storygraph, and I really want to see my own improvement and my own reading frequency increase over time. It's really encouraging to see I'm reading more this year than I have last year and the year before that, and so on and so forth. And then I also want to find an audience that overlaps with my interests without forcing me to be super niche. I just love so many different things, and I have ADHD. So my hyperfixations and the things that I love and what I will go really deep down the rabbit hole with will kind of hop around. And I know the algorithm won't necessarily favor me for that, but I would like to just feel like I can talk about whatever story just has me in a chokehold at any given time. And I hope if any of you like that, that would be amazing. If you only like some of my videos and not others, that's fine too. I don't need I don't need a community that is obsessed with all of the same things as me. It's just nice to meet people that like even some of the same things as me. The next question, I already lost count. Why do you love reading? So, of course, in terms of why I love reading right now, there is, of course, the escapism factor. It's really nice to just dive into a book and lose the day, but not feel like I wasted my time. There's also, but also, there's just a kind of fascination in my case with the sheer amount of stories that are out there. And especially as I have pushed myself to read books from other cultures, books that cover topics that I am not very familiar with, books from foreign authors that have been translated into English. It's just constantly, it's almost overwhelming when I try to consider how many stories are out there that I haven't even heard of, let alone read. And I just really am always kind of kicking myself, but also feeling so blessed that I live in a time where I can access so many of those stories, and I would like to read as many as I can. So, and I would say that reading is my favorite medium for storytelling over movies, TV shows, and even video games. It's a very efficient way. I am one of those people that if I find an anime that I like, I will maybe watch the first couple episodes and then be like, okay, but where's the manga at? And then I will end up just completely catching up on the manga and drop it, and I won't go back to the anime. It's just what happens. And then movies and TV shows and video games feel like they take more time to tell the story. That can be largely because of its visual format and the way they're made and the type of stories they're telling, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that I can consume books and manga and graphic novels a lot faster than I can typically get through a TV show or a video game. So there's also the sense of endurance and preservation that comes from books, from stories being preserved as a book, that really resonates with me. The written word has existed as long as human civilization has, and will of course persist long after you and I have left our mortal coils. And so the idea that a lot of these stories that I love and cherish in my own lifetime can still exist long into the future and perhaps resonate with people that haven't even been born yet, that may not even live in a civilization that is the same as ours. And I just, in a big kind of like galaxy brain way of thinking, I love that about books and the written word. Oh, I will say a special call out for why I love reading. I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but what I do love about nonfiction when I'm able to read them is that for me, nonfiction is about being able to learn from others, whether that's reading about their lives and experiences, or reading about what they have dedicated their lives to learning about and becoming an expert in. And sometimes I'm able to even learn more about myself through reading about them and their experiences or their expertise. And so I find that really fascinating. It's, it's a kind of fancy way of saying nonfiction is educational, but it's in a way that when I choose to sit down and read nonfiction versus when it's being forced upon me thanks to academic or school required readings. So even, like I said, even though I don't read nonfiction that often, it is a personal goal of mine as I get back into reading more books to try to pick up more nonfiction every once in a while. The next question: what book or series got you into reading? I have to be completely honest, it was the Harry Potter series. My mom used to read them to me and my older sister at bedtime, which was a time before I could even read books on my own. But by the time I was 7, I could read them on my own. And so from there, I did read all of them, and I was obsessed with them. That is a chapter of my life that I have closed since then, so I won't talk any further about that series in particular. But for me, a big part of when I think back on it is tied more to the nostalgia and the people that were a part of my life when I was into that series and that franchise, that make the memories fond and positive for me, rather than almost as much as, or perhaps more at this point, than what the books themselves were. So, yes. And next question: what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? So this is kind of a general question. It doesn't matter which booktuber I had the opportunity to meet. If it was any of the people that I like, I love asking people for a recommendation of a book that it doesn't matter what the other person's preferred genres are or something. Like, this is the book that you recommend to anyone and everyone with a just try it kind of energy, you know? Like, it's you know, I love this book so much, so please just try it for me. And if you don't love it, that's fine. At least you tried. So if I ever got to meet any of my favorite booktubers, maybe a couple of them I could already guess what their just try it recommendation would be, but I'd still be like elated to be able to actually ask them in person or just over a private conversation and chat about it. If I ever got to meet my favorite booktubers, I would also like to ask them what their schedules are like, because I'm terrible about structuring my days to include dedicated content creation time. So fair warning, if you like any of my videos, there's just not a lot of consistency to when I am able to create, edit, and upload these videos. Especially the editing portion is such a soul-sucking activity, and my ADHD just cannot most days. It's kind of the big reason that I'm making this video instead of another video that I've supposed to have been editing it for almost a whole month now, and I just haven't. But I was like, it's been so long since I've uploaded something, I have to make something. So here we are. I decided to move this one up on the list of like order of videos to make. So we'll see if I get back to that other one. And I would love to know if any booktubers or just content creators in general have tips or advice on how to do this and how to manage the balance of like free time and motivation to get this work done. I'm not trying to do this as a career. I'm not trying to make this my full-time job. I'd just like to have some amount of consistency when I make my videos. So the next question, what challenges do you think running a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? This is kind of like, I think the original question was about starting a booktube channel, but I've already done that. So the challenges when it comes to running a booktube channel for me is absolutely the time management and consistent uploads, like I just mentioned. It's really, and this isn't because of any personal problem or personal reason that I think is necessary for this channel, but it's just that the algorithm itself punishes you if you do not upload consistently. So if I want my channel to actually even reach people, I have to be uploading on some kind of schedule with some amount of frequency. I've probably already ruined that I know I have ruined it in the past, but even my recent video that popped off, that was like a couple months ago, but even that recent video that popped off, my immediate thought was, oh, I better make another video soon because the algorithm will give it visibility, and if I don't, I'll be buried again. Maybe that's already happened, but it's just a match made in hell because of my ADHD and an algorithm that demands consistency, which is one of the things I struggle the most with, especially when it comes to my executive function and doing things that I just don't want to do that day. Editing is a big one for that. Another aspect, though, when it comes to the challenges is the urge to compete and monetize. I know I said that I don't want to make a career out of this, that I don't want to make this my full-time job. But it's almost inevitable at a certain point that if I'm able to monetize my channel, why wouldn't I, right? But then once you monetize the channel, that adds the new pressure and responsibility of trying to, well, make actual money off of the channel. And once you're doing that, you get so bogged down in the numbers and the stats with all your videos, and then it becomes way too easy to compare yourself to other channels, especially ones that started around the same time or after you, and then get really discouraged. And of course, this all results in the fun being drained out altogether, as I would be focusing more on making money. So, and I've already been tested. My channel's not even monetized, but I've already had times where I have seen new channels pop up well after me and have seen like instant success or like, instant boom in subscribers and views and traffic, and maybe they've already been able to monetize their channel. And it's hard not to blame myself for that. Even though logically I know that part of it is the algorithm and part of it is me not catering to the algorithm. But, it's YouTube, it's online content creation. There are certain elements of it that I just have no control over. And that is something I'm going to have to very consciously remind myself of all the time. And so I hope that if those of you choose to stick around and hang out, that you leave a nice comment or a like or something, because honestly, all the comments that I have gotten on previous videos have been the greatest joy of this whole process. Every time I see comments and have discussions in the comment section, which I know it's not a very conducive place to have like in-depth discussion, but just all of those comments have made me so excited to check my notifications every single day. So really, that'll do more for me than simple view counts or subscribers. Okay, next question. When did you start reading? So as I said before, my mother used to read to me in bed at night before I could read for myself. I can't really remember when I started reading, simple picture books and board books. Basic chapter books, I guess, maybe started in around K through second grade. But what I do specifically remember is when I was in the third grade. So when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I had a teacher, my homeroom teacher, put together a special shelf of books behind her desk that was just for me because I was reading at a more advanced level than the other kids in my class. There was like a regular reading corner in her classroom that had like lots of different books in it, but she made this special little shelf just for me. And it did have one of the Harry Potter books, but it also had The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia. And it had several other books. And it was really fun because I could go up to her and ask for a book. And then when I finished it, I could bring it back to her and ask for a different one. And she would ask me like what I thought about the book and did I like it? And she would help me pick out the next one from the shelf. And I know she was working with my school librarian to build that shelf. So I'm super grateful to the both of them for really encouraging that in me, because I ended up reading quite voraciously from then on for most of my schooling. But I think it also fed into my fantasy obsession because of the aforementioned books that she had on the shelf. I think she really clued into what I liked and picked out the right things. Next question, where do you read? So I know most people would say I can read anywhere, and I technically have and can read anywhere, but I think I get my best reading done in places without electronic distractions like my phone or my computer. I really like reading in bed, although lately I have been falling asleep about as much as I actually read when I try to do that in bed. I do get pretty good progress on books when I travel on planes, and I like to bring physical books when I go on those trips on planes. I will sometimes play some music on my phone and like put earbuds or headphones in and then kind of focus in on the book. I also read a ton of webtoons on my phone and my computer, and I'm usually doing this late at night instead of sleeping. So I do read on my phone quite a bit, but sometimes it's really hard to, stay focused on the task of reading something on my phone instead of like flipping over to some other app. So I am kind of thinking about getting a dedicated e-reader because I do like ebooks. And my phone is better for reading in bed, but it's also hard to stay on task with it. And the final question, what kind of books do you like to read? So my very obvious answer is fantasy, and more fantasy. If it has a romance subplot, it's even better. I also love reading queer Chinese novels in recent years, like Heaven Official's Blessing and Remnants of Filth, also known as Yuwu. I'm also dabbling more in sci-fi and nonfiction. Like I mentioned earlier, I haven't read a lot of nonfiction, but I'm trying to make a concentrated effort in that area. I'm learning to like memoirs, but specifically in a graphic novel format. I was able to read quite a few of those during my time in library school, after having been assigned one in my graphic novels class. For webtoons and manhwas, this is where I go really heavy into romantasy. So everyone who's getting their like fairy smut and stuff from authors like Sarah J. Maas and those like spicy romantasy recommendations on Book Talk, I don't read any of those because I'm already getting my fill in the webtoon space in manhwas, especially transmigration stories. This is also how I like my smut, my spicy reads, with visuals. So if you want some smutty webtoon recs, you come to me. If I'm gonna do, instead of doing spicy content regarding like most of what's popular on Book Talk or BookTube, I would probably do spicy content videos based on these stories instead. I also find that I'm a little more willing to read farther outside of my preferred genres and experiment when it's a webtoon, because you can cover a lot of ground really quickly. With webtoons, they're very easy to read, and so I can get a better sense for whether or not I'll like the story or if it's hooked me a lot faster than trying to read books that are farther outside of my comfort zone. And that's the end of the BookTube Newbie Tag core content. But before I go, I will leave you with a couple of recommendations that give you a little more insight into me as a person. So my universal book rec, the one I said earlier that people would give like a just try it attached, is always Graceling by Kristen Cashore. I am in the middle of rereading. I say I'm in the middle. I have started a reread of the original 3 books before I move on to the newer ones, Winterkeep and Sea Sparrow. I will also recommend the Chinese web novel that I'm reading right now with an online group of friends. It's called Clear and Muddy Loss of Love. That's the English translation of the title, but I can link it down below. The author's name, I'm not joking, is translated as "Please Don't Laugh." So I have been having a wonderful time with that one. It's a big one, but doing it in a book club format has been quite fun. For webtoons, I will recommend Gourmet Hound by Leah Harlann, which can be read entirely for free on the Line Webtoon app. Hashtag not sponsored. And then the other one I'll recommend that gives you a sense of what I'm talking about for those like heavy romantasy. They're almost like trashy junk food romantasies that I like to read. But this one is super good. This one's really one of my favorite romantasies, and that is called Father, I Don't Want This Marriage by Roll Yuri and Hong Hee-soo. And that one is available to read on Tappytoon. So, if any of those recommendations resonated with you, if you've read any of them, please tell me in the comments. If you want more recommendations, let me know in the comments. And if you don't want to say anything, but you just want to say hi, you can give me the little wave, like wave hello at me. Whichever wave emoji speaks to you, just drop it in the comments. And once again, this is supposed to be my 500 subscriber celebration video, so thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed so far. I hope you like it here. I hope you continue to stick around. And we're already well on our way to 1,000, which will be such a big milestone for me. So I hope you'll help me get there. But thank you so much to everyone who has already been watching my videos, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and read something great before we meet again. Bye-bye.